It's time for the Phil Ferguson Show.
All right, everybody, this is Phil Ferguson, and of course, you are listening to the cleverly titled Phil Ferguson Show, a fun and different style of show today instead of all the regular segments. I think if we talk long enough, and since my guest will probably help me talk long enough, we're just going to kind of freeform this and go through the show. My guest today is Matt Dillahunty. How are you, sir?
Talkative. How are you?
I'm good and talkative, and I was just going to say before pre-show, I just spent a good part of the last hour explaining American politics to my Italian teacher in Italy.
I'm also supposed to tell you buongiorno.
Buongiorno. Eccellente. She is a darling, by the way. You can tell her I said that. But my Italian teacher, I was explaining to her, she's like, well, when does it end? And I'm like, God willing. Oh, wait, that means I'm a Christian. Fuck. God willing, January 20th. Because of our bizarre system of counts and delegates by state, and then people become the actual delegates, and there's some discussion about, does the delegate actually have to do what the state says that they have to do, and the party that represents them, and they don't have to vote until December, and then the Senate has to review it apparently and confirm it in January. There's a lot of room for some fuckery to go on.
Yes.
And I'm so sorry, but I've been looking at a few conservative friends' web pages, and they all need fucking aluminum hats, tinfoil hats.
Yeah, faithless elector is the next thing.
What's that?
Sorry, I hit the wrong button. Faithless electors are members of the Electoral College that don't vote for the presidential or vice presidential candidate that they're supposed to vote for.
Right.
And there are states that impose fines or penalties on anybody, any elector from the Electoral College that doesn't vote for the candidate that they pledged to vote for, or to disqualify them. But not all states are that way. And so in nearly, like, there were faithless electors in 2016. There were faithless electors in 2004, 2008. It's not completely unheard of. And actually, there's a Wikipedia article on faithless electors, which is my primary reference for today. Welcome to Matt reading Wikipedia to you. But I don't have all this memorized. And so it's nice that they went back and said, here's what happened in the 2016 election, where in Colorado, Kasich received one vote for president, which was invalidated, and the elector was replaced by one who cast a vote for Clinton.
Yeah.
So that type of stuff happens, and there's some ways to correct it, but not every state has a correction. It becomes could you infiltrate the electors and have them cast votes for people that they're not pledged for? And then what's the legal remedy for that? Is there, if the state doesn't have any requirement, are we just stuck with whoever they voted for? Like, if you got together a bunch of faithless electors who all wrote in Mickey Mouse, does that mean Mickey Mouse is president?
Yeah, and I think that the next step after they all vote is it goes to all just be nebulous Congress. I don't know if it's probably the House to certify it. Of course, they could just do the right thing and fix it, but since that may not have been done before, that's going to be a problem. But I see conservative friends tripping balls over Michigan, and apparently there were some found votes or some votes that were filtered out through some error in the code, and then they became available. And they don't seem to recognize that in every state and in every location where votes are being counted, there are representatives from the Republican Party and the Democratic Party sitting there in the room when this stuff is going on. So there's a lot of eyes on this. So for conspiracies to be have legs. One would imagine a lot of people have to be involved in the cover-up, which is kind of how conspiracy theories live, I guess. But right now, we don't have anyone at 270, and we're talking on the 5th, middle of the afternoon, 5th of November, 2020. Yeah, that's the year that it is.
It's worth reminding people that since no election results have been certified,
right,
and none of them will be. I think the earliest certifications are like Vermont and Virginia do it on the 10th
of November.
Right. But like Texas has between 15 and 33 days, depending on special circumstances. So you're looking at like December 3rd for Texas to certify. What we're looking at are the projections from experts, not based on polls, but based on which results, which election results have been submitted to like Associated Press and everything else. They're reporting these. These just aren't the certified results. And so while, for example, I have multiple maps open and had multiple maps open the entirety of election evening.
Right.
Fox News, for example, has it right now 264 to 214. And that's only because Fox called Arizona for Biden on election night.
And they're stuck with it. So they don't.
Well, they can uncall it if they want to. They just haven't. And so CNN hasn't called it. The Times hasn't called it. AP hasn't called it.
Well, actually, AP called it and then uncalled it, didn't they?
I didn't see a call from AP on Arizona. But in any case, Arizona, by the best sources, is not ready to be called, although it's leaning Biden. Same with Nevada.
Yeah.
And, there's talk, could Biden flip Georgia? Because at this moment, there's 13,000 votes separating two of them in Georgia.
I just had someone tell me on Facebook that the difference is now 8,000, according to some other source. And like you said, that these aren't official numbers. I mean, some of them are put on websites. I saw, I think it was last night, a representative from Pennsylvania saying that, our numbers are the best collection at the time, but if you want more accurate numbers, you have to go to each county's website. Yeah. And so there's a lot of counties in Pennsylvania. I don't know how many. I know Illinois has 102, and I'm assuming it's like that. But that's a lot of places to check and a lot of places to go, whoops, we transposed a number. And it'll all get fixed eventually, and it's checked and double-checked and certified. And that's the problem when they're so close, because like we were talking about with Georgia, and Pennsylvania is now 109,000, 108,000 away. A difference with maybe a couple 100,000 votes to still come in that we know of. Apparently, what is the DeJoy, the guy who's in charge of the post office, which, trying to destroy the post office, allegedly has been in court, and a judge ordered him and the post office to go do sweeps to look for missing ballots. There might be as many as 300,000 in different places that not necessarily missing, but they weren't tracked properly. And apparently he said they don't have time for that. They just don't have time and manpower available to do that, and he's now been threatened with imprisonment for violating court order. But we'll see.
Wow. So I had no idea that had actually happened, because I've been either on the air or trying to sleep while obsessively watching the news, multiple news stations, even though I knew, like, basically Nevada's come out and said that you're probably not going to know Nevada until Saturday.
Yeah.
But that at 10 o'clock tomorrow morning, they'll have the results of like another 50,000 votes, when right now there's 6,000 separating them.
Yeah, I'm looking at ABC News, and it's 12,000, which is not a lot.
Yeah.
And of course, historically, votes come in, the big votes come in later from the big cities, because that's where big votes are. I mean, a county that has 5,000 people doesn't suddenly come up with 20,000 more votes. And so those last minute things, which, I held out hopes and dreams for 4 years ago, tend to break for the Democrat. And if Arizona stays with Biden, and I'm pretty comfortable with that one, but Nevada is really squeaky close and tends to be working in Biden's favor. That would be 270, which is what you need, but that's not a whole lot of room for comfort, in my opinion.
Oh yeah, no, there's no comfort here. And what I pointed out the election night, this is what makes me sad, is that, while I knew this was a possibility, and of course I knew that it would be a possibility that Trump would win and we wouldn't take the Senate, but I was hoping that we would take all of them and that it would be an impressive win so that there might be a mandate to do something. Now it looks like I'm still fairly confident that Biden will be elected, but I'm not confident that we're going to take the Senate. We may. Right now it's a coin toss. I could not believe, it's not surprising to me that Mitch McConnell regained his seat, but I'm surprised Lindsey Graham won his back and so handily.
And very, very easily.
I'm surprised about Susan Collins. Those were two seats that I was expecting to flip to take us to 52, and now it looks like we're not going to be there. And what it means is shame on America.
Yeah,
that we have a president who is the single most dishonest, unintelligent, uninformed, unpresidential, mocking, bully, lying, cheating, thieving, whatever, presiding over a pandemic that has killed 250,000 Americans. And we've spent more on this election than probably any election in history. We have a greater voter turnout. We may actually exceed the 60% threshold, which we haven't exceeded since 1968. But it looks like we might do that. Biden's currently got 72 million popular votes, and Trump has 68.5.
Right.
Trump has 3 million more popular votes than Hillary Clinton got in 2016, and Biden has an extra 4.5 or 4 million on top of that. So we have 9 million more people who were eligible to vote in 2020 than were eligible to vote in 2016, and it looks like we're getting about 9 million more votes. Not that every single one of them voted, but so we got the vote out. We spent loads of money. We had lots of stress and anxiety, and yet what we find is that for the last 50 plus years, 30% of the United States is on the left side and fairly shitty. 30% of the United States is on the right side and fairly shitty, and 40% are completely disinterested and fairly shitty. So I just live in a shitty country.
Well, again, my Italian teacher, she asked me, she said, it's clear that Trump is bad. How did almost half the people that voted think that was a good idea to vote for him? And I'm like, that's a really good question. I don't have the answer for it.
I think most of them are in this. So they're fed up with politics and they're fed up with politicians. So they see him as the outsider who's here to shake things up. They don't care that he bends and breaks the rules because he's doing it to own the libs. And when you grew up being told that Mexicans are coming for your jobs and that African Americans are lazy and criminal, and you're going to be paying your taxes to keep them alive and their kids alive. When you've been fed this narrative, and somebody like Trump comes along to basically stick it to the bleeding heart libs, it feels like he's protecting you.
Yeah.
The thing is that what he's protecting them, he's not actually protecting them from anything. Those people are in fact losing their jobs. The accusations against minorities are largely untrue, or no more true of them than of anybody else. It's bizarre to me, but only in the sense that we have people in the United States who are living in different realities from their perspective. It is not just, I only get my news from Fox News. There's a flood of misinformation. Like somebody mentioned, I can't vote for Biden because he's a pedophile. And I'm like,
yeah.
There's countless reasons why I can understand why someone would have a problem with Biden. But when we're just going to conspiracy theorist stuff, it's like I think the internet has destroyed our brains by giving us access to too much information and no real reliable way of discerning truth.
Because I have said before that one of the best things about the internet is you can find any information you want. One of the worst things about the internet is you can find any information you want.
Yeah.
And if you get, back in the day when you and I were much younger men, particularly me, if I had a crazy idea and a friend of mine shared that crazy idea, the two of us could talk to each other. And then when we meet a random third person, that random third person would go, "What are you, fucking stupid?" And you go, "Oh." Well, now you don't have to go talk to that person, and maybe now even less likely because you don't even want to leave your fucking house. You go online and you put in something like, "Is the earth flat?" And you find a bunch of friends. And they're not, it's not the random person that, if 95% of the people accept the reality of an oblate spheroid that they can put you in your place, you're now not meeting that random 95% of the population. You're meeting a very selected and cultured percentage of the population, and you can become convinced that, wow, about half the people think that the earth is flat. And that's very dangerous.
Yeah. It troubles me, like last night, Paul Ogia made a post about buggy whips and how no buggy whips went away. They don't exist anymore. Nobody cares about buggy whips anymore. His post was about something else, but I went on Amazon to see if I could order a buggy whip.
Oh yeah, I'm sure you could.
And I can.
Yeah, all kinds of whips.
Absolutely can. And I basically tweeted at him, and I was like, I went to go send you a link to a buggy whip, but I realized the only reason I was doing it was because right after I said nobody believes in the Greek gods, and right after I said nobody believes the earth is flat, I was quickly proven wrong on both of those things, and I think it's fair for you to feel the same way about buggy whips.
Yeah. It's a funny thing. I was at an atheist conference a couple years ago, and I had the luxury of standing I was next to a table or a booth, and there were 4 people, and 2 of the people started talking about 9/11. I've had this big heartburn with 9/11 and an atheist with 9/11 for years now. And the 2 people were arguing that it was a conspiracy and that George Bush and yada, yada. And the other 2 people who were friends of mine were being the rational ones. And they started this discussion, and I'm like, I can't do this anymore. I've done it too many times. And so while I'm standing there, I just take a 6-inch step backwards and then another 6-inch step backwards. And when I'm about 10 feet away, I just turned and walked away. Well, in the morning, my friends were like, "You were there and then you weren't there. We never even seen you turn around and leave," because I walked away backwards. Just like, I can't have that conversation. And when I see someone post 9/11 truther stuff, that's probably the most quickest thing that's going to get you gone. And now it's the flat earth stuff, and of course sometimes politics. I'm okay with people having a different opinion. I'm okay with people even discussing it and arguing and convincing me that I'm wrong. I just don't have any more energy left for the complete crazy, and I just can't. I got other things to do.
Yeah, it's I don't spend any time with the flat earthers. I just recognize that evidently they exist and they're not all faking it. Although I think there are a number of people who are sort of individuals who their pleasure is from stirring up shit. And they're like, what difference does it make if people believe the earth's flat? And at the end of the day, if that were the only thing somebody believed that was just really bizarre, well, okay, it's not a huge deal.
Yeah.
I mean, actually, we do a lot of things on the assumption not that the entire earth is flat, but that are consistent with a flat earth. We level the ground and build based on everything being flat. We create faces on our oblate spheroid.
I put a level when I build a house. I want to make sure the house is flat, just like the ground.
By the way, you take that level up in a plane.
It's always gonna show you something's level.
Yeah, it's funny.
Yeah.
There's lots of things that people can argue about. It just seems. So flat Earth is one of the ones that just every day when I wake up, I don't think about flat Earth, but every day where I think about flat Earth, I can't believe that I'm in 2020 and there are really people. I can understand the anti-vaxxers and people afraid of medical science or the people who suspect that, the election might be rigged or there might be fraud because they've been given, information that looks like it supports that, even though there's no reliable information that election fraud is occurring at any rate that would be significant to an election. And the more we talk about it, the more likely it is that somebody's going to do it. Like the Republicans who went and dumped a bunch of votes just so they could prove they committed election fraud to try to prove the election fraud was happening.
Yeah, and I can't remember who it was, but Rick Santorum had suggested that he had sent in a mail-in ballot and intended to vote in person just to prove that the system was broken. And I'm like, so that's like saying I'm going to go rob a bank just to prove to you that I can rob a bank. Well, then you're the problem, dude. It's not the theoretical bank robber, it's the actual bank robber. And is there election fraud? Do people cheat sometimes? Sure. Is it very, very small? Sure. But you know what's real? Gerrymandering. What's real is putting your pal in charge of the post office, and he starts taking apart machines so that the 3-day efficiency falls from 95 to 98% down to 85% because it might just end up delaying some votes. And, we happen to focus on really big urban markets in swing states like Milwaukee and Detroit in Michigan. And those are the areas where the post offices got shut down. I have a friend that works in a post office whose name will not be revealed in the middle of nowhere. And nothing's changed for them. They're humming along like great. But in Pittsburgh, Detroit, Philadelphia, there's problems. Just, maybe it's coincidental. Maybe
Well, all those people so I hear from people all the time who are like, oh, it's all rigged. Your vote doesn't matter. And I'm like, if the vote doesn't matter, why are they gerrymandering districts? If the vote doesn't matter, why are people panicked about voter fraud?
Yeah.
If the vote doesn't matter, why are we having these conversations over and over again? It's because the vote does matter. And when they, in 2000, when they ended up taking it to court and you had all this stuff about hanging chads, all of that is proof that your vote matters. Now, whether or not your vote gets disregarded by the Supreme Court is a separate issue. But the way things work, generally speaking, the way they're supposed to work, your vote does in fact matter. There's a reason why we're looking at Nevada. And despite the fact that they're not done counting, I can tell you that the current count, based on what they reported, is 604,251 votes for Biden, 592,813 votes for Trump. Now, that's it with 89% reporting. They're not calling Nevada yet. We may not hear about Nevada for a couple of days. But we have the number of votes there. And this is all something that is subject to audit and review by nonpartisan committees as well as the individuals of each party. And you can go in and be an observer, although the rules for observers are changing a little in the light of COVID, which I'd also like to talk about because I noticed today, because I spend a lot of time watching this, the 7-day average,
yes,
the 7-day moving average for deaths as of today is 7,110, which is higher than it has been ever.
Yep.
The same thing is true for the 7-day moving average for daily new cases is at 500,000. And the death rate.
Matter of fact, I have it up on my screen myself because I was talking to my Italian friend and I figured we'd talk about it. Yesterday in the United States, 108,353 new, what I call known cases.
Yeah. Now, the interesting thing for me is the death rate for closed cases. There's 36 million cases which have had an outcome. And by outcome, either that's death or recovered/discharged.
Right.
And as it stands right now, the death rate of closed cases is 3%. Now, when everything's said and done, we expect that to continue dropping down closer to 1%, maybe. But it's been 3%. And what I found interesting is that, back in April, when we didn't have the best data, it was 22.28%. And we knew that that curve was going to level off.
Yeah.
And it did. By June, it was at 8%. By August, it was at 4.6%. And now we're down to like 3.4%. That's resulting in death. But when you go to the United States, the death rate of closed cases in the United States is 3.69 or 3.67%. So our death rate in the United States is slightly higher for closed cases, just slightly, negligibly higher.
Yeah,
but higher.
And we're supposed to be America, right?
Yeah. Yeah, we're supposed to be Merca.
Merca.
And, I live in Texas, which is number one in cases. There's 988,000 cases in Texas. 18,904 Texans are dead.
Oh, yeah, they are number one. When did that happen? Just recently, I guess.
In cases, we've been around there. Well, see, we have a governor who... And then we have a bunch of rednecks. So basically, California is only way up there because they
got it first.
Yeah, tons of people.
Yeah.
Florida and Texas are there because our administration didn't take the steps that they were supposed to take.
Yeah, I'm of course in Illinois, and I think yesterday we had 7,500, and so far today, normally these numbers, at least I'm looking at. Worldmeters.info reset around 7 or 8 at night. Illinois is at 9,935. So,
I always look at right above the chart. You can click on now, or you can click on yesterday. Yep. I always click on yesterday because that's the last full day of information.
Yep, I'm with you, man. And it's one of those things that Illinois, for a long time, was doing quite well. We had the conservatives screaming and crying. What about this and what about that? And, it's not like I'm saying I want every restaurant to close, but, we have to find the right balance, and we can have a discussion about what the balance is, but calling the virus fake is not helpful. And we're around 1,000, 1,500 new known cases a day. And in the last few weeks, it's jumped. And now my concern is, I want to see if you had the same thought. In the spring, in the summer, what the hell is even beeping here?
That was probably me sending you my favorite graph.
It was you. That's awesome. But what if the decrease in cases in April, May, June, July was not us actually doing anything good? What if that was a seasonal effect? What if during the summer and our ability to go out into the heat actually did knock back the transmissibility of COVID quite a bit? If that is the case, we're going to have a long fucking winter.
Yeah.
So
and it may be a long winter while we're also waiting for election results, but my favorite graph.
I see it. That's a nice graph.
If you skip all the way, this is an animated timeline of COVID cases since June, and it's updated every day with all the new statistics. So you can run it all the way up to November 4th. And then it's color-coded by whether the state in question is red, very Republican, slightly less red for Republican, pink for slightly Republican, kind of greenish for even, which only applies to Wisconsin. And then it gets bluer and bluer. And when you run it through to the end, what you see, and this is cases per million since June.
Yeah, I was trying to figure out the scale here. Yeah, cases per million.
So North Dakota is in first place with 60,000 cases per million. Yeah. Basically, North Dakota is in an infected wasteland right now.
Yep.
Then South Dakota, then Wisconsin, Iowa. But in any case, almost all red. The only blue on the first 25 is Nevada's at 31,000 and Illinois. Hey, congrats, Phil.
Yeah.
Is it 25,000? But my favorite thing to do is right up above the chart. You'll see where it says most cases and it also says fewest cases.
Yeah.
I just like to click back and forth between those. It's like if I need a red light at my desk, I keep it on most cases. And if I need a blue light at my desk, I put it on fewest cases, because fewest cases per million, Vermont is at 2,000 per million. Maine is at 3,500. New Hampshire's at 5,000. New York State is at 7,000. So of all the states, New York is fourth in fewest cases per million. And yet New York is what Trump wants to point to.
Yeah, and it points to a lot of things that American citizens aren't good at. As an example, making change at the counter. Yeah. How is it that it seems like the vast majority of the population can't make change? The vast majority of the population, well, they don't need to read a map anymore, but they can't read maps. They can't seem to understand the difference between a large state and that's empty. I think something like that. One of the Dakotas has maybe 500,000 or 800,000 people in it, and you can have a population of that size within a few blocks in some of the really big cities in this country. But they look at the map, and it's the classic map that land doesn't vote, people vote, and it's skewing our reality, and even the idea of what are the first states that get to cast votes for primaries drives me nuts. And there's historical reasons for that, but I think it should be a lottery. Every 4 years, 5 states go first, and then another 5 states go, and then another 5 states go. So everyone gets a fair representation. It's not Iowa. So, the whole system is skewed from day one, that who's going to get more points from a state like Iowa.
Yep. And, as it stands right now, like North Dakota is the worst on that chart with 60,000 per million, but they don't even have a million population. So it's only 762,000, which means 6% of the people in North Dakota have COVID or have had COVID. 6%.
I'm looking, and I don't even know why Wisconsin it has as even. They have, and it's one of those things like Wisconsin is a great example. You have Milwaukee, you have Madison, then you pretty much have Wisconsin. And Pennsylvania is like that. It's Pittsburgh and Philadelphia, and then Alabama in between. It's absolutely staggering how we have become so divided between city and not city, and those are the two different bubbles that we live in, two different realities.
Yeah, I got into not really. I didn't really get into an argument because I didn't follow through, and I don't think the person ever responded. But on a friend of mine's webpage, someone who I don't know, who's like a family member of theirs, chimed in with something just before the election about, hey, do you want? So my friend had posted banish the electoral college, and this family member was like, well, do you want California and New York deciding everything? And I was like, yes, if that's where most of the people are, that's what democracy should be. Why on earth should Wyoming, with 500,000 people, have an equivalent say to California with is it 10, 13 million something? What is California's population?
Let's see. They have 20 plus 25.
39 million.
They've cast 10 million votes. Is that all?
California has 39 million people.
Then that means only 1/4 of them have voted.
Well, that might mean that all the votes have been counted yet.
Well, that also includes children. They can't vote.
True. Yeah. That's not voters. Not 39 million voters.
But 39 seems like a lot of people, right? I had the same thing. I had a conservative friend who said some liberals want Los Angeles to have more power than these 15 states. And I'm like, I don't want Los Angeles to have more power than 15 states. I want that 10 million block of people to have more or equal power to Idaho, Montana, Wyoming, Utah, North Dakota, South Dakota, Iowa, Kansas, Oklahoma. Yes, because that's representation.
Right.
You now have taxation without representation. And of course, I don't know if you had this in mind, but when you look at states that produce an economic surplus in addition to what they collect from the federal government, well, you're going to be surprised by this, Matt, but it's the blue states that generate the revenue. It's the blue states that kick in money towards the federal government. It's the red states that pull the money out.
What? I can't believe that.
Yeah, it's like every little
shock.
Every little graph you can look at, STD rates, obesity rates, education levels, religion. It's all worse in the red states, and it's all worse like in Illinois. There's half a dozen cities or metropolitan areas, and once you get about 10, 15 miles from Champaign-Urbana or from the Chicago suburbs, I might as well be in Arkansas. It's really it's not that much different.
If you look at the maps anywhere, like one of the nice things is that in these political maps that they're tracking the actual election results, like if you're on New York Times or CNN or Fox or whatever, well, I'm not sure about Fox, but you can click in on a state, and so while New Mexico looks really, really blue. You can click on it and you can see, oh, there's this massive blue region, and then there's a red region. Well, you go to like Nevada, it's almost entirely red. Basically, Las Vegas, Clark County is blue, and Washoe County, where Reno is, that's blue. But the rest of it's red, and that includes like Carson City, and and yet the state is likely to go blue because that's where the people are located. What's happening with some people is they're like saying, hey, our neighborhood is going to vote, but you get one vote for household. Well, hang on. If there's 10 people living in my house and one person living in your house, why do we have the same number of votes? That just doesn't make sense. And so it's like, you don't even have to go to the neighborhood. Let's just say we're living in a house together and there's 10 of us, and 7 people are in the living room and 4 of them voted to have barbecue for dinner tonight, and you're in the bedroom and you vote for Chinese, and somebody in a bathroom votes for Chinese. We're not voting by room.
Yeah.
You're not going to trump, which is going to live forever. You're not going to trump the vote of all the people in the living room just because you decided to go off and be in the bathroom. This isn't about geography or land voting. There's 39 million people in California. Well, that's probably 15, 20 states I could add up.
Yeah. Easily. Here's an interesting example. You mentioned Clark County, where Las Vegas is in Nevada. The combined votes, I'm just going to add this together off the top of my head, is about 800,000 so far. And if I go up a little bit, there's another county called Eureka County, which, give or take, within the scale is about the same size as Clark County. And it has slightly over 900 votes. And when you look at the map, there's this big red section with 900 votes, and this blue section about the same size with 800,000 votes. It's absolutely staggering, and maybe the maps should, show the counties on scale of population. I don't know. I don't know what the answer is, but it's tricky as hell.
I mean, but you look at California population, raw population is almost 12% of the entire United States.
Yeah.
I don't know how many states you have to add together from the bottom to get to 12, but I'm going to guess that it's 20.
Oh, I don't think it'll take that many, but because I think when I looked this up before, South Dakota was the smallest with 500,000.
7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I could do the math on it, but I'm going to say that it's from Mississippi down.
And that's how many? 12, 13?
I think so. I mean, I could dump it. Once upon a time, I could dump it in a spreadsheet. It's not gonna matter much. But the point is that the people who are like, oh well, every state has 2 senators, which I have a problem with. I understand that was put in. The House is representation in the House is based on population, and representation in the Senate is 2 per state. Boom, 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 done. And that seems really fair until you realize that the 2 per state runs into big problems. And not the least of which is something that I've talked about in the last couple of days, which is, what if this election, first of all, we should abolish the Electoral College. But if we don't, since we're not going to abolish the Electoral College now, we look at the electoral votes. What if this comes down 269 to 269, which is a possible
indeed
result? That means nobody gets 278 votes, electoral votes. So what happens then? Well, it goes to the House of Representatives, and they pick the president. The House of Representatives is going to pick the president from the top 3 candidates that are running, and the Senate is going to pick the vice president from the top 2 candidates running. Now, we already know the Senate's controlled by the Republicans. They're going to pick Pence. But the House is controlled by the Democrats. Unfortunately, the way the voting rules in the House work, though, it's not just a raw vote in the House.
Right.
It's each state gets 1 vote.
Yeah.
And so for this really weird scenario, we turn the House into the equivalent of the Senate.
Yep.
And as it stands right now, there's a majority Republican states, like 26 to 24, which means that in an electoral vote tie, the Republicans will decide everything, despite the fact that Democrats control the House.
And despite the fact that maybe 4 million more people voted for one candidate than the other.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we've got that. So we've got politics. We've got COVID. Oh, you have this new show. Tell me about that.
Well, you're going to be on it.
I'm hoping someday, because I think your listener base is probably a little bit bigger than mine.
I don't know about that, but we put it up. We put it on the calendar, didn't we?
I think we did. I'd have to go look at the date.
I think you're on December 2nd. But basically, I've been the host of the Atheist Experience for 15 years, and Atheist Experience is run by the Atheist Community of Austin, a nonprofit educational corporation providing positive atheism and the separation of religion and government. But what that means is that I don't get to be political on any of the ACA shows, or at least not too much. I can talk about issues. I just can't endorse candidates. Whereas if I have my own show, which I do, that isn't a part of the ACA, which I do, I can say whatever the fuck I want.
Right.
And literally the first episode, or one of the first episodes, was me and Andrew Seidel on there just basically saying fuck Trump and talking about...
Because he was there as a individual, not as a representative of the group he works for.
Yes, correct. He's my friend and a constitutional scholar and lawyer, and he was not there as part of the Freedom from Religion Foundation. But we were talking about, Ruth Bader Ginsburg's death and the seat, and he and I both predicted that it was going to be Amy Coney Barrett, and we talked about that stuff. To be fair, my prediction was mostly based on information that likely came from Andrew anyway, so I don't want to claim that I had any prescient sense. I just happened to be in agreement with him about who was going to be the replacement.
Yeah. It's a strange thing.
It's Wednesday nights at 7 p.m. Central. It's on the network's called The Line. So if you just go to YouTube and do like Matt Dillahunty, The Hang Up, you'll find it there. Jimmy Snow, Dear Mr. Atheist, has a number of different channels. One of them is The Line, which is where we take live calls. And so, the show basically runs the same way every week. I may or may not have a guest. Some weeks I do it solo. Some weeks I have a guest. I've had Andrew Seidel on several times. I had Nick Fish on last night. You're going to be on December 2nd. Sometimes I'm there by myself. But it starts off with, the joke was that I'm famous for hanging up on people on the Atheist Experience. And somebody's like, you should call your new show The Hang Up. And I said, nope. and then I thought about it, and I was like, no, that's perfect. Because the way the show runs is, for about the first 10 minutes of every episode, I tell you what my hang-up is for this week. What am I hung up on? This week, obviously the election. Before that, it was RBG and Amy Coney Barrett and stuff like that. And after I do my little roughly 10 minutes, it's free form. I don't have anything written down. It's just, this is what's on my brain. Then I sit down with either the guest or on my own, and I take calls. And the calls can be about anything. I hope that we start getting more and more calls from the religious. I want to continue doing those things as part of the show. It's just that right now everything's politics.
Yeah, and it's one of those things that I put on Facebook the other day. I can't wait to transition from discussions about the symptom, Trump, and move more towards the problem, which I think is religion, and how it affects and distorts everything in this country.
Yeah, and I don't know. Granted, religion's a huge problem, and the Republicans, through their fear-mongering and what I would say is blatant dishonesty and manipulation, have cornered the market on fundamentalist Christians, not all Christians.
Fair enough.
There's tons of religious people who voted blue and are decent people, even if they have some beliefs that they can't really defend. That's going to be true for all of us to varying degrees.
Yeah, because if everyone was a Methodist or an Anglican, I'd probably have to find a different side hustle.
Yeah.
Because it'd be like, yeah, whatever. Like, I remember years ago, someone came to me and they said, Phil, can you give me the best arguments? I'm debating a deist. And I'm like, why? just move on. If someone just thinks there was a creator that created everything and never has and never will and doesn't interfere or change anything in the material world,
right?
Who gives a shit? Let them have it. Whatever.
Yeah, I have zero. So I debate for a living, and I will pretty much. I don't really turn down too many debates. There's a couple where like it was clear that they were interested in beating me more than they were interested in having a discussion on the topic.
Yeah.
And one guy set up like a GoFundMe for people to pay him to take a week off so that he could watch 5 videos of mine and do some and I'm like, look, I have no objection to people getting paid. That's not the problem.
Yeah.
I don't even have an objection to someone getting paid to take time off to prep for a debate. It's just that no debate had been agreed to at that point. And the way he did it was, Matt's a charlatan and we need to take Matt down. And I'm like, that's not why I'm in this. If you have good arguments, I'm willing to address them. Every debate I go into, it is, I really want the opposition to present the best arguments they can. I'm not maybe they have always presented the best arguments they can because there's not any good ones.
It sure does feel like to me, at least on the Atheist Experience, that the level of argumentation that's being brought forth is actually worse than it used to be. I don't know, and maybe it's a person who is a clear thinking individual knows that it's not going to go anywhere because they've heard your show. But the people that call in, and it's like the $1 Million Challenge that the amazing meeting Randy's Educational Foundation had. They call in and they say, "I'm going to do this," and you're like, "Okay, well, give me the argument." I have an argument that's going to prove God. Okay, let's hear the argument. And not only do they not provide an argument to prove God, they don't provide an argument. I mean, it's like you started by saying this is what you're going to do, and you don't even do what you said in English you were going to do. It's a bizarre thing, and they can't seem to recognize the difference between what they said they were just about to do and what actually ends up happening.
Yeah. It's so part of it is there are some people who've been, I guess, no longer want to participate. I don't know. I can't tell you what's happening with regard to why people aren't making better arguments other than apparently they don't have any. But I don't just rely on the atheist experience, because people are going to say, "Oh, well, only the stupid Christians call into that show." Well, if that's what you think, why aren't you calling in? Why aren't you getting your pastor to call in? Why? Oh, it's because Matt won't treat them fairly. That's actually not true. But because what I'm doing is I'm undermining some perceptions. So by having the new show, The Hang Up, one of the things is I tell you what I'm hung up on, then we have calls, and I give almost every caller the option: are you going to hang up on me, or am I going to hang up on you? And we have a bit of fun with it. And this is true even when people have called in specifically to argue stuff, because like last night somebody called in saying they wanted to argue that late-term abortions should be illegal. The problem is they had no idea what the definition of late-term abortions was. They didn't have any idea how many there were, and that almost all of them are medically necessary. And I'm like, if you don't have that base amount of information, well, I don't care what your arguments are.
I just listened to earlier today when I was doing a little yard work. I think it was Atheist Experience 2 weeks ago, and someone called up and was adamant about the importance of the Ten Commandments. And I've done this myself before, and it's hysterical to do. And you ask them, what are the Ten Commandments? And they can't enumerate them. I'll even grant them out of order, but they can't. They don't know what they are. They haven't thought about them. They don't know the language. They don't take into account the translation. And it's comical that you are telling me that this book is the roadmap to salvation, and this is the most important part of the book. And you've called me to tell me all this, but you don't even know the basics of your religion. That's staggeringly stupid to me.
Yeah, it's really strange. But it's not that surprising. It's just that people are so cocksure and then when you start to ask them, okay, well, what do you know about this? Now, granted, I'm guilty of it as well, and so are many other people. Like, somebody came up to me the other day and they said, like, all right, which of Trump's policies are you opposed to? And I'm like, well, I have quite a few. I'm strongly opposed to his flip-flopping or no longer allowing trans people to serve in the military. That was some progress we made. The kids in cages thing, I'm not at all pleased with how he's handled the coronavirus. But if your point is that I don't care as much about his policies as about him as a person, I'll own that, because we have a repugnant individual that does not know anything, does not listen to the experts, talks mad shit about everybody.
Yeah.
And there's 250,000 people dead. I don't know that I need to know. Oh, but the problem is that anytime I get into one of those arguments, like I did this with Dinesh D'Souza, we did a debate in New York City on March 1st, and I got to make the point that every time Dinesh talks about one of these issues, he starts with what the financial aspect of it is, what's going to happen with the market, what's going to happen with the money. So, and I pointed this out on stage. Every time we talked about, or almost every time we talked about a subject, Dinesh would go to the money, and I would go to the people, because that's the difference. I care more about what's happening to people. Is money irrelevant? No, people need to earn a living and everything, but the markets don't favor. Well, the market is largely irrelevant to the poor. It's not like they're invested in the market.
Oh yeah, I would be more dramatic than largely. It's irrelevant. Yeah.
I mean, it's only in the sense that the only way that it's relevant is if the market collapses, then we're all fucked.
Yeah, but there's as you're getting to,
saying
of course.
the market's good doesn't tell me anything at all about how about how much a gallon of milk costs and whether or not a family's going to be able to afford it for their kids.
Because like when Trump got elected, and after Trump's election, I would regularly tell my clients that people losing their rights and people being oppressed is not necessarily bad for the market. And so the market should not really be utilized as a means of measurement of success for the masses. You need to look at how many people aren't working, how many people can't eat, how many people are losing their fucking homes. These are much more important numbers than probably what D'Souza was doing and what Trump is all about money. I mean, if anybody should be all about money, that's my fucking job. I think about money way too much. Just ask my wife. But there's so many other things that we need to look out for, and we're not, as a society. We're not doing a good enough job.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm in agreement there.
Wasn't there something about the least? How goes the least of us measures the greatest of us, or something like that in a book I read once?
Something akin to that.
Yeah.
By the way, I did the math while we were sitting here.
Uh-oh.
And basically, California's population is greater than that of Wyoming, Vermont, D.C., Alaska, North Dakota, South Dakota, Delaware, Rhode Island, Montana, Maine, New Hampshire, Hawaii, Idaho, West Virginia, Nebraska, New Mexico, Kansas, Mississippi, Arkansas, Nevada, Iowa, and Utah combined.
That sounded like a long list. Did you get to 20?
3, 6, 9, 12, 15... 18, 21, 22.
Damn. Yeah.
California's population is greater than the smallest 22 states combined.
And I think last I heard is that if California was a separate country, it would have the 5th largest economy in the world, which is pretty staggering.
And if things continue the way they are, I might end up living in that separate country of California.
I see. Well,
I at this point, granted, I still think Biden's probably going to win this. I don't think we're going to get the Senate, which means the next 4 years is just going to be a stagnant mess of how do we move forward, how do we fix it.
Which, by the way, is good for the market.
It probably is.
Yeah,
I wouldn't know.
Historically,
I am a financial idiot, as Phil can attest to.
Historically, deadlock is favored by the market.
Yeah.
Another thing, by the way, your show... You're pimping it out. You're making money, and I'm delighted because we've had this conversation. I won't go into the details here publicly, but you have been underpaid for your service to the community, and now you have this YouTube thing, and you've got ads on there, and people call in and kick in $5-10 at a time. I'm very delighted because every single time someone is able to pay their bills by promoting secularism, by promoting rational thought, by having good arguments, I think that's a win for society. And anyone who's listening, you could send me money, but I'm fine. Send money to Matt. Send money to other people that you like, even if it's just $1 or $2, so that they can keep doing what's necessary. Because if the only people that make money on TV or radio are people like Alex Jones, we're all fucked. So put your money where your mouth is, people.
Well, I appreciate that. And so when I first got started, and I've done the Atheist Experience for 15 years, I don't get paid for the Atheist Experience. Nobody gets paid for the Atheist Experience. The Atheist Community of Austin has 2 employees. I am neither one of them. Nobody on the board gets paid. When I was president, I didn't get paid. I'm not president right now, but I'm still on the board. And we're all volunteers working. And not only that, I've put more money of my own into the organization than has ever come to me. And that it was, I bought multiple mixers and the equipment, and it was all about the mission. And my own personal YouTube channel, which I set up as part of my Patreon project. You can go to patreon.com/atheistdebates, and I put up 4 videos a month there on a bunch of different subjects, including debates, debate reviews, and subjects surrounding the debates. I make the money off the Patreon, but the videos live on YouTube and they're free for everybody. My YouTube is not monetized. And so, and I get beat up on that all the time. People are like, you're probably leaving hundreds of thousands of dollars laying there. What are you doing? And it's just, it was more important for me to get people information than to get paid twice for something.
Yeah.
But I got bills to pay, and we're in a different environment. So I started up the Hang Up, and yes, that is a for-profit exercise, and I split it with the people who run the network. I'm never good at asking for money, and I'm never good at selling myself for money. I'll sell myself as, you want somebody to come do a debate? That I can do. How much we charge for it is a separate issue. But yeah, I'm happy this is working out. It should dig me out of some holes, get me some health care. But really, I shared a GoFundMe the other day for my co-host on the show, Jenna Belk, because she is pregnant.
I heard.
Just announced it to all of us on Sunday. But what she didn't announce, that I wish she kind of would have, is that she recently lost her job, and with it, her insurance.
Yeah.
And so now she's pregnant during a global pandemic with no job and no health insurance. So we set up a GoFundMe, which is we've raised a little over $4,000 so far for Jenna, and I'm far more appreciative than that. So for now, while I appreciate Phil's telling people to come give me money, and you can do that too.
That's right. You can give $1 here, $1 there.
I'd much rather, if you only have $1, give it to Jenna's baby.
Yeah. That's another staggering thing, and I want to wrap up in 5 or 10 minutes because we could do this all day. But the idea that Obamacare or some kind of health care for all is so offensive to the Republican Party, or at least that's my interpretation, and maybe I'm completely misreading them. They really do want something. They just, there's a promised replacement to Obamacare, and we've had that for 12 years now. Well,
yep.
where is it? Show me.
It's coming. The healthcare plan's coming. It's coming any day.
Because if you want to dramatically encourage economic stimulus, if every single employee or prospective employee or want to be employee in the United States has health care provided by the national system, that frees up people to move from one job to another. That frees up people to leave a job they don't like to go start a company. Because if you want to go start a company now, you have to walk away from your health insurance and possibly pay $25,000 to $30,000 a year if you can even get covered to start your own business. Talk about a drag against the economy and job creation. Fix that shit so that people making $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 a year aren't scared to death that if they actually go to the doctor when they feel like shit, they're going to go bankrupt. We've got to fix that. That's a big broken problem.
Yeah.
Is there anything we didn't cover about?
I didn't do a long-winded rant about third-party voters and how I'm going to shame them into oblivion along with the people who didn't vote, but I've done that enough.
Yeah.
I would just like to point out that right now in Georgia, the difference between the two candidates is 12,000, and in addition to the 4.8 million votes that have been cast in Georgia for one of the two primary candidates, there were a little over 11,000 votes for somebody else.
I'm seeing 61,000.
Oh, I haven't. I was watching the news channel. They just put up that there were like 11,000. I'm not going to do the rant here and now because I've gone. It's just that every time I talked about it, I tried to explain that. Look, I love the notion of ranked voting to give it a try. I think it may end up with a watered down, let's avoid any extremes and change, which is kind of what it's designed to do. But I'm open to giving it a shot. And Maine has it. I'd like to see other people trying it. And I'd like first to abolish the Electoral College. And I'd like for people to be able to vote their conscience. And by the way, I'm not going to say that you're wrong to vote your conscience. But I view the primaries as the time to explore third-party voting and non-standard voting. But in the general election, the fact of the matter is, on January 20th, either Joe Biden or Donald Trump is going to be sworn in as president. Nobody else has any realistic shot at all.
No, not even close.
Every single state is going to go red or blue. And while I get that third-party voters are frustrated about the reality of this, you cannot say, I love my LGBT friends, but I'm not going to vote in a way that supports their interest. You can't say, I care about these people, and yet I'm not going to vote at all. or I'm going to vote for someone who can't possibly get elected because I don't like either of the options. It's like you're not. I love the notion that a vote is not a love letter to a candidate. It's a chess move for the game that you're playing in. You need to participate in this. And if you're making bad moves, people are like, "What, Matt? Why would you vote shame people? You shouldn't be vote shaming. You absolutely should never be vote shaming people. These people are participating. They're voting their conscience. You should not be vote shaming them. Fuck that. Name another decision that one person could make that impacts all of us, where it would be wrong for us to say, I think you are making the wrong decision and I think you are doing harm to us. I don't see that happening anywhere. Now, I'm in favor of let's make more options viable. But if you have a choice between giving everybody in the United States stage 4 lung cancer, or even if you view Biden as almost as bad as Trump, let's say skin cancer, and you decide to vote for athlete's foot, you've basically said you're okay with stage 4 lung cancer.
Yeah, it's a trippy thing. I just pulled up Nevada just for laughs because this data is so much easier to see now. The spread between Biden and Trump, Biden is currently ahead by 12,000 votes. There are almost 23,000 votes for other.
Yeah.
And so that's, I mean, when you get down to, and you never know in advance. I mean, okay, I'm in Illinois, or if you're in California or New York, fine. But almost everywhere, it could be way closer than you thought. I mean, we know this from looking at 538's projections. This looked kind of in the bag with a 4 or 5 or 6 state plus side for Biden, which I was really happy about, because if he wins with 270, I mean, it means that he wins. But I had said that as soon as Biden is officially called the winner, assuming that happens, I think within 5 minutes, Trump will start his 2024 campaign because it's a fucking money train. It's a gravy train. And there's so many people are going to be like, Trump's coming back. And he's going to collect money. And all he's got to do is continue to dodge the law until he eventually runs away to Russia.
Thing is, if he's not reelected, he can be running for office
forever.
And he no longer has any protections. And so that was it 2nd District of New York or whatever is going to, they're going to come after him.
Yeah, I have those dreams. I have those hopes and dreams. It's so often that the super rich, when you can afford good lawyers, you end up, it's just like, and I don't want to spend more than a minute on it, but like when large financial companies get caught tricking people out of money, something like, $100 million has been swindled from their customers. Often they have to give the $100 million back. And it's like, wow, just imagine if you went and robbed a bank. You went and robbed 10 banks and you got caught twice. And the penalty was that you had to give the money back to the 2 banks that you got caught robbing. What? No. That's not much of a disincentive that you have to give back the money you stole only when you get caught. The penalty needs to be dramatic and severe, but Trump should be in prison. We should not be talking about whether he wins or not. He should just be in jail. But again, there's almost 69 million people now that have thought he was the better candidate of the two. And
there's suspicion being sown. Granted, there's suspicion being sown by many different sides.
Yes.
But right now, there's a cell phone video that's claiming to show voter fraud when really it's already been confirmed that it's a camera person from WXYZ in Detroit loading his camera and other gear into a wagon for work. Yeah. But because people are so suspicious, they're so conspiracy theorist minded, they're running around with their cell phones thinking they're going to be the next, reporter who breaks the story on voter fraud when that has never happened.
Yeah, apparently they can find voter fraud, but with all these cameras, we still haven't found aliens or Bigfoot. What are you gonna do, Matt? Unless there's something we really got to fit in, I want to thank you so much for your time. The show is called The Hang Up, and it's on the YouTube channel called The Line, which confused me quite intensely at the beginning. You, of course, are on the board and a member of Atheist Community of Austin, and you're often on...
And American Atheists?
and American Atheist. You're often on The Atheist Experience, which is a show put on by the atheist community of Austin. It is not your show, even though you're on it more often than not. Thank you so much. Oh, what was your other debates YouTube thingy? Atheist Debates?
Patreon.com/atheist debates, and that gets you to my default YouTube channel as well.
Excellent. Any last thoughts on your way out the door?
No, just thanks, and I'm looking forward to. I'm going to go. I'm going to try to avoid family. I've been locked in my house since March, but I am going to go spend Thanksgiving with my girlfriend, and so I'll be back and looking forward to having you on the Hang Up December 2nd.
December 2nd. Until then, my friend, hopefully you can stay safe, and we'll talk later.
Thanks. You too.
All right. Bye.